Now let's look again at the imperative versus declarative approach. But let's dig deeper so that we really understand what's going on or why Compose is really great at what it does. So in the imperative approach of Android development, so you would have Android layouts. So you have a lot of views that you put together to create a user interface, which means that you have two sections going. First is going to be the layout file, which is usually in XML, and then you would have an activity, right? So in order for you to be able to traverse or to be able to go and get, for instance, a view or in this case, a widget, could be a button, a text, or an image or so forth, in your code, in your activity, you would have to use functions such as find view by ID, right? So what you're doing when you say find view by ID is that you're traversing this tree that is created containing all of these widgets in the background, which, as you imagine, takes time and is expensive in a sense that it takes a lot of memory, a lot of computing power. So one of the things that also you have to remember is that in order for you to change, let's say, a text view, you would have to use getters and setters. That means you have to say text view set text to a string or a button dot on click and so forth, right? So you actually have to manually change the state of the views. First of all, you have to traverse the widget tree, which is very expensive. It takes a lot of computing power. And also it increases errors because it may happen that the view you're trying to find has been long removed by another function, by another class. So now you are looking for something that doesn't exist, or if you are trying to update something that doesn't exist, then you end up with a lot of errors and your app may crash. And also, as I said, you are directly changing the state of the widget manually. When you say text view dot set text, you are directly going and changing that state of that text view, which is not a great thing because it pollutes your whole state management of your app and you wind up with a lot of issues and you potentially may wind up with a lot of problems. So this is the imperative approach. And the fourth pitfall is that you may end up with also update conflicts. So update conflicts may happen for the same reason I said. You may try to update something that was already updated, and now this state is all messed up because there isn't really a one source of truth when it comes to state. All of these are some of the pitfalls we get from the imperative approach of Android development. Now, when we go to the declarative approach, in this case Jetpack Compose, things change dramatically. The same idea we have, right? So we create views. In this case, we create declarative UIs, right? Which means now the UIs are built and updated differently than before. What happened now is that when something changes inside of our widget of tree, in this case, all of these composable functions or widgets inside of your app, what happens is the system goes out and updates the screen, but most importantly, goes and only updates what needs to update, the widget or the function that needs to be updated only. This is what we call recomposition. The beauty here is that we no longer have to manually update each widget. So you remember the text view that's set, we no longer have to do that because we're declaring what we want to see and we're letting the data dictate whether that view needs to update or not. And also, most importantly, we no longer rely on XML to create user interfaces. Now everything is done in one way using one language, in this case Kotlin. Another main concept in the declarative approach is that data is passed down. What that means? Well, in other words, we pass data into our main composable, and then the other inner composable functions, in this case, in return will react to it, which means they will update and describe the user interface as they see fit. So now we have smaller composables functions that are waiting or receiving data and be reactive as they get that data. That's really, really powerful. And on the other hand, on the other side too, what happens is that events go up. What that means is that an event is triggered. For instance, if a user interacts with, for instance, parts of a story widget, as you see in this diagram here, what happens is that the app logic will know that there is an event that is happening here, and it will know whether it is a new data that's being posted, that's been sent out. That way, other parts of our user interface, right, other composables, will also be notified that, oh, something has changed. We need to do something if necessary. Again, that recomposition is happening here. Remember, if necessary. That is the most beautiful thing about compose, is that it does not go around and compose and recompose, I should say, all of the functions. No, it just goes and picks the one that needs updating. Now we got rid of all of the clunk. We got rid of all the coupled situation that we had between layout XML and activity, because no longer have to go and set my data or the state manually using getters and setters and so forth. Now we're letting the data itself mandate everything, the data and the events. So this is the declarative UI model. Just because we need to have some sort of definition, recomposition is the process of calling your composable function again when inputs update. Is the process of calling your composable function again when inputs change. And this goes back or takes back to what we've been working on, which is that circle that we tapped. What happens, the recomposition happens because every time we change the state of our counter, the compose compiler will know that, okay, just that text will have to recompose because the data has changed. Not anything else, just that text. All right, so let's go back to our code. Now that we understand at least the advantages that we have when using compose versus the old way, quote unquote, of doing development. Now, there are a lot of things that I went through here, but I hope I broke them down in such a way that are easy to understand. And you are welcome to rewatch this video. That way you have certain concepts that are really, really important for you to really understand compose, Jetpack compose. So if things are not really making a lot of sense, don't worry, just watch the video. And remember, we're still in the beginning stages of this course, so there's a lot to learn. And these concepts, I should say, they will come up over and over. And by the end of this course, I promise you, you will be good. You will understand all these concepts because you will have done a lot of work yourself to really understand how all of this works. But I want you to get this concept to change the way you think about development. Okay, so let's go back to our code.